Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to start our level 3 of our iconic photographs iceberg. Let's not waste any time. Let's get right into it. Alright guys, let's get started with our iceberg. This is the first entry. This is Moonrise Hernandez, New Mexico. So Moonrise Hernandez, New Mexico is a black and white photograph taken by Ansel Adams late in the afternoon on November 1st, 1941, from a shoulder of Highway US 84/US 285 in the unincorporated community of Hernandez, New Mexico. The photograph shows the moon rising in the dominating black sky above a collection of modest dwellings, a church, and a cross-filled graveyard with snow-covered mountains in the background. Adams captured a single image with the sunset lighting, white crosses, and buildings. Art historian H.W. Jansen called the photograph a perfect marriage of straight and pure photography. The photograph became a popular collectible that Adams personally made over 1,300 photographic prints of during his career. The fame of the photograph grew when in 1948 the print sold at auction for $71,500 in 1971. In today's money, that is $478. The same print sold for over $609,000 in 2006, which in today's money would be $819,000 at a Sotheby's auction. Alright guys, that is Moonrise Hernandez, New Mexico. Our next photo is Rain the Second. Rain the Second is a color photograph made by German visual artist Andreas Gursky in 1999. In the image, a river, the Lower Rhine, flows horizontally across the field of view between flat green fields under the overcast sky. Extraneous details such as a dog walkers and a factory building were removed by the artist using digital editing. In 2011, a print was auctioned for $4.3 million, then £2.7 million, making it the most expensive photograph sold. Ryan II held the record until 2022, when its price was exceeded by Le Violon d'Ingres. Now, it doesn't say the price that it was beat by, but it was beat in 2022. Our next photo is called The Kiss of Death. The Kiss of Death is a black and white photograph by an unknown author taken on May 12, 1957. It depicts the moment in which Linda Christian kisses Alfonso de Portago at a brief stop during the 1957 Mille Miglia race in northern Italy. Portago was killed moments later when a tire burst at 150 miles per hour in Guidizzolo, Cavriana. Over the years, it has become one of the most renowned photographs of kisses and a symbol of young audacity and passion. The photograph depicts actress Linda Christian wearing a dotted dress and headscarf, leaning in for a short kiss with Formula One driver Alfonso de Portago, who wears the typical 1950s racing gear, a white helmet, goggles, and a leather jacket. A crowd of onlookers joyfully stares while journalists immortalize the scene with their camera. The photograph became famous in Italy and was popularly named Il Bacio della Morte, the Kiss of Death, in reference to Portago's death shortly after the image was taken. The image was published in newspapers in the days following the race. Life magazine gave fame to the photograph after it published it in its May 27 issue under the title, Death Finally Takes a Man Who Courted It. In later interviews, Linda Christian remembered the moment almost like a premonition. I had a strange sensation with that kiss. It was cold, and it caused me to look for the first time at Nelson seated behind him. He seemed to be like a mummy, gray ashen as if mesmerized. He had the eyes of someone who had suffered an enormous shock. The image is part of the Bettman archive stored in the Iron Mountain National Underground Storage Facility, a former limestone quarry located 220 feet or 67 meters below ground in western Pennsylvania. So that is The Kiss of Death. Our next image is The Valley of the Shadow of Death. The Valley of the Shadow of Death is a photograph taken by Roger Fenton, taken on April 23, 1855 during the Crimean War. It is one of the most well-known images of war. Roger Fenton was sent by Thomas Agnew of Agnew & Sons to record the Crimean War, where the United Kingdom and the Second French Empire, the Kingdom of Sardinia, and the Ottoman Empire were fighting a war against the Russian Empire. The place of the picture was named by British soldiers the Valley of Death for being under constant shelling. When, in September 1855, Thomas Agnew put the picture on show as one of a series of 11 collectively titled panorama of the plateau of Sebastopol in 11 parts in a London exhibition. He took the troops and Tennyson's epithet, expanded it as Valley of the Shadow of Death with its deliberate evocation of Psalm 23. Filmmaker Errol Morris went to Sebastopol in 2007 to identify the site of the first iconic photograph of. He was investigating a second version of the photograph without cannonballs on the road and the question as to the authenticity of the picture. Hitherto opinions differed concerning which one was taken first, but Morris spotted evidence that the photo without the cannonballs was taken first. He remains uncertain about why balls were moved into the road in the second picture. Perhaps, he notes, Fenton deliberately placed them there to enhance the image. However, according to the Orsay Museum, this is unlikely as the fighting raging around him would probably not have allowed him to do so. The alternative is that soldiers were gathering up cannonballs for reuse and they threw down balls higher up the hill onto the road and ditched for collection later. That is the Valley of the Shadow of Death. Our next photo is the Solvay Conference, 1927. The Solvay Conference have been devoted to outstanding, preeminent, open problems in both physics and chemistry. They began with the historic invitations only 1911 Solvay Conference on Physics, considered a turning point in the world of physics, and continue to the present day. Following the initial success of 1911, they have since been organized by the International Solvay Institutes of Physics and Chemistry, founded by the Belgian industrialist Ernest Solvay in 1912 and 1913, and located in Brussels. The institutes coordinate conferences, workshops, seminars, and colloquia. Recent Solvay conferences usually go through a 3-year cycle: the Solvay Conference on Physics, followed by a gap year, followed by the Solvay Conference on Chemistry. Alright guys, so that is the Solvay Conference of 1927. So our next photo is called The Ultimate Confrontation. So the Ultimate Confrontation, subheading The Flower and the Bayonet, is a photograph of John Rose Casimir, born in 1950 at the time of the American high school student. This iconic photograph was taken by French photographer Marc Ribot. Ribot photographed Casimir on the 21st of October 1967 while taking part with over 100,000 anti-war activists in the National Mobilization Committee to end the war in Vietnam march on the Pentagon to protest the U.S. involvement in Vietnam. 17-year-old Casimir was shown clasping a chrysanthemum and gazing at bayonet-wielding soldiers. The photo was featured in the December 30th, 1969 special edition of Look magazine under the title The Ultimate Confrontation, The Flower and the Bayonet. The photo was republished worldwide and became a symbol of the flower power movement. Smithsonian Magazine later called it a gauzy juxtaposition of armed force and flower child innocence. Casimir graduated in 1986 from the New York College of Health Professions in Manhasset, New York, as a massage therapist and worked in Hilton Head Island, South Carolina until 1991. She then moved to Aarhus, Denmark with her Danish husband and their daughter. She returned with the daughter to the United States in 2002 and resumed living on Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. In February 2003, Ribot again photographed Casimir protesting against the Iraq War, where she carried a poster-sized copy of the 1967 photograph. In 2010, Casimir was invited to the Spanish organization Avalon Project Peace NGO to speak during activities for International Peace Day in Seville, Spain. In January 2017, she joined the Women's March in Washington, D.C. So that is the Ultimate Confrontation. Our next photo is the elephant's foot. The elephant's foot is a nickname given to a large mass of corium and other materials formed underneath the Chernobyl nuclear power plant near Pripyat, Ukraine during the Chernobyl disaster of April 1986, notable for its extreme radioactivity. Discovered in December of that year, it is located in a maintenance corridor near the remains of reactor number 4. It is still an extremely radioactive object, though the danger has decreased over time due to the decay of its radioactive components. The elephant's foot is a mass of black corium with many layers, externally resembling tree bark in glass. It was formed during the Chernobyl disaster in April 1986 and discovered in December 1986. It is named for its wrinkly appearance suggestive of the foot of an elephant. It is one of a small part of a much larger mass that lies beneath reactor number 4 of the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. The elephant's foot is located in room 217-2, 15 meters or 49 feet for us American to the southeast of the ruined reactor and 6 meters or 20 feet above the ground level. The material making up the elephant's foot had burnt through at least 2 meters or 6.6 feet of reinforced concrete, then flowed through pipes and fissures and down a hallway to reach its current location. So that is elephant's foot. All right, our next photo is 99 cent. The photo you see above titled 99 cent Picticon, for obvious reasons, is one of the most expensive photographs sold in modern times. Back in 2006, it sold for a whopping $2.3 million at auction. A sum that seems ironic given that the image is of items for sale in a 99 cent store, but a closer examination of the critique of this photo reveals why someone might have paid such a tremendous amount of money for it. For starters, it offers a unique perspective of the store from an elevated position, something that the photographer Andreas Gorski has employed many times in his photos over the years. As any photography tutorial will tell you, altering the perspective from which you shoot makes the image you create more unique. Gursky has perfected that approach, which you can see in the video below, highlighting one of his shows at the Louisiana Museum of Modern Art in Denmark back in 2012. By taking the photo from a higher than normal point of view, Gursky affords us a better look at the rows upon rows of stuff. That in turn allows the image to have a repetitiveness about it that's oddly comforting, despite the fact that there are probably tens of thousands of items in the shop. Additionally, by looking out where the sea of 99 cent items from an elevated position, Gursky was able to incorporate an incredible amount of color, patterns, and textures. Taken as a whole, the view we have of those features is almost reminiscent of an impressionist painting, our eyes being allowed to make sense of the scene in whatever way they feel. It's not hard to appreciate the subject matter too. Gursky often photographs everyday mundane scenes, but because his techniques are so masterful, he seems to be able to create the art out of just about anything. There aren't many people that would walk into a 99 cent store in Los Angeles and think to photograph it, but Gursky's creative eye certainly made it work. Alright guys, so that is 99 cent. Photo is called Shell-Shocked Soldier, 1916. A shell-shocked soldier in a trench during the Battle of Fères-Courcelette during the Somme offensive on September 1916. His eyes express the madness of the war. The soldier looks like he has gone insane from what he has seen. At the moment in time, everything he's been raised to work within, the social constructs which make up every part of his life, just exploded and shattered to nothing. And he's lying there, slumped in a trench, afraid for his life, hearing and seeing death around him, his entire physique broken. Even more haunting when you think that people didn't smile for pictures back then. So that is Shell-Shocked Soldier, 1916. Alright guys, our next photo is of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the mushroom clouds. Trigger warning because the story and history behind this photo is a little dark, so you have been warned. The United States detonated 2 atomic bombs over the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki on the 6th and 9th of August 1945, respectively. The 2 bombings killed between 129,000 and 226,000 people, most of whom were civilians, and remained the only use of nuclear weapons in armed conflict so far. In the final year of World War II, the Allies prepared for a costly invasion of the Japanese mainland. This undertaking was preceded by a conventional and firebombing campaign that devastated 64 Japanese cities. The war in the European theater concluded when Germany surrendered on May 8, 1945, and the Allies turned their full attention to the Pacific War. By July 1945, the Allies' Manhattan Project had produced 2 types of atomic bombs: Fat Man, a plutonium implosion type nuclear weapon, and the Little Boy, an enriched uranium type fission weapon. The 509th Composite Group of the United States Army Air Force was trained and equipped within the specialized silver plate version of the Boeing B-29 Superfortress and deployed to Tinian in Mariana Islands. The Allies called for an unconditional surrender of the Imperial Japanese Armed Forces in the Potsdam Declaration on July 26, 1945, the alternative being prompt and utter destruction. The Japanese government ignored the ultimatum. The consent of the United Kingdom was attained for the bombing, as was required by the Quebec Agreement, and orders were issued on the 25th of July by General Thomas Handy and the Acting Chief of Staff of the United States Army for atomic bombs to be used against Hiroshima, Kokura, and Niigata and Nagasaki. These targets were chosen because they were large urban areas that also held military significant facilities. On August 6th, a little boy was dropped on Hiroshima, to which Prime Minister Suzuki reiterated the Japanese government's commitment to ignore the Allies' demands and fight on. 3 days later, a fat man was dropped on Nagasaki. Over the next 2 to 4 months, the effects of the atomic bombs killed between 90,000 and 146,000 people in Hiroshima and 39,000 and 80,000 people in Nagasaki. Roughly half occurred on the first day. For months afterward, many people continued to die from the effects of burns, radiation sickness, and injuries compounded by illness and malnutrition. Though Hiroshima had a sizable military garrison, most of the dead were civilians. Japan surrendered to the Allies on August 15th, 6 days after the Soviet Union's declaration of war and the bombing of Nagasaki. The Japanese government signed the Instrument of Surrender on September 2nd, effectively ending the war. Scholars have extensively studied the effects of the bombings on the social and political character of subsequent world history and popular culture, and there is still much debate concerning the ethical and legal justification for the bombings. Supporters believe that the atomic bombings were necessary to bring a swift end to the war with minimal causalities. Critics dispute, though, how the Japanese government was brought to surrender and highlight the moral and ethical implications of nuclear war. Alright, so that is the mushroom clouds over Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Our next photo is called Omagh bombing. So the Omagh bombing was a car bombing on August 15, 1998 in the town of Omagh in County Tyrone, Northern Ireland. It was carried out by the Real Irish Republican Army, Real IRA, a provisional Irish Republican Army splinter group, who opposed the IRA's ceasefire and the Good Friday Agreement signed earlier in the year. The bombing killed 29 people and injured about 220 others, making it the deadliest single incident of the Troubles in Northern Ireland. Telephone warnings which did not specify the actual location had been sent almost 40 minutes beforehand, but police inadvertently moved people toward the bomb. The bombing caused outrage both locally and internationally, spurred on the Northern Ireland peace process, and dealt a severe blow to the dissident Irish Republican campaign. The Real IRA denied that the bombing was intended to kill civilians and apologized. Shortly after, the group declared a ceasefire. The victims included people of many backgrounds and ages: Protestants, Catholics, 6 teenagers, 6 children, a woman pregnant with twins, 2 Spanish tourists, and others on a day trip from the Republic of Ireland. Both Unionists and Irish nationalists were killed and injured. As a result of the bombing, new anti-terrorism laws were swiftly enacted by both the United Kingdom and Ireland. British, Irish, and US intelligence agency allegedly had information which could have prevented the bombing, most of which came from double agents inside the Real IRA. But this information was not given to the Royal Ulster Constabulary. In 2008, the BBC reported that British intelligence agency GCHQ was monitoring conversations between the bombers as the bomb was being driven to Omagh. A 2001 report by the police ombudsman said that RUC's special branch failed to act on prior warnings and criticized the RUC's investigation of the bombing. Police reportedly obtained circumstantial and coincidental evidence against some suspects, but they were unable to convict anyone of the bombings. Cole Murphy was tried and convicted of conspiring to cause the bombing and was released on appeal after it was revealed that the Gardaí forged interview notes used in the case. Murphy's nephew's son, Huey, was also tried but was acquitted. In June 2009, the victims' families won a £1.6 million civil action settlement against 4 defendants who were found liable of the bombings. In 2014, Siemens Daly was charged with the murder of 29 people. However, the case against him is withdrawn as of 2016. Our next photo is the Tetons and the Snake River. The Tetons and the Snake River is a black and white photograph taken by Ansel Adams in 1942 at the Grand Teton National Park in Wyoming. It is one of his best known and most critically acclaimed photographs. The picture was taken from an elevated point of view and depicts the Snake River in a mountainous valley. A dramatically lit black and white photograph depicts a large river which snakes from the bottom of the right to the center left of the picture. Dark evergreen trees cover the steep left bank of the river, and light deciduous trees cover the right. In the top half of the frame, there is a tall mountain range, dark but clearly covered in snow. The sky is overcast in parts but only partially cloudy in others, and the sun shines through to illuminate the scene and reflect off the river in these places. Our next image is called Combat. Combat is a black and white photograph by the Soviet photographer Max Alpert. It depicts a Soviet military officer armed with a TT pistol who is raising his unit for an attack during World War II. The work is regarded as one of the most iconic Soviet World War II photographs, yet neither the date nor the subject is known with certainty. According to the most widely accepted version, the photograph depicts Junior Polychuk Alexei Yeryomenko minutes before his death on July 12, 1942, in Luhansk Oblast, then called Vroshilovgrad Oblast, Ukraine. Over the years, Alpert gave several contradictory versions of the event, with dates ranging from autumn of 1941 to 1943. Alpert was consistent in that he did not know the officer's name and that the photograph's title Combat, commander of the battalion, was likely inaccurate. After he took it, he overheard that the combat is killed and tentatively associated this message with the subject of the photograph. After the war, Alpert received numerous letters claiming identification of the officer, but only one was confirmed by a joint investigation by Komsomolskaya Pravda, an administration of Luhansk Oblast undertaken in the 1970s. According to this reconstructed version, Yeryomenko was political commissar in his unit. When the commander was wounded, he took command and raised the unit for a counterattack against the German offense. He died within minutes after that. Our next photo is called Reynaldo Dagsa's last photo. So Reynaldo Dagsa is a Filipino politician, a member of the Barangay Peacekeeping Action Team, and served as councilman for Barangay 35 in Maypaho, Caloocan until his assassination in 2011. He was also a corporal in the Philippine Army Reserve Command. So the assassination and the photo. His death achieved notoriety due to his taking of a New Year's Day family photo on Tuna Street, which inadvertently captured the faces of both his killer and a lookout for the killer. The shooter, a convicted robber out on parole, pointed the gun in the photo directly at Dagsa seconds before the shot went off. Dagsa was rushed to Martinez Hospital but was immediately pronounced dead from a .45 caliber gunshot wound to the head. The photo was later turned over to Caloocan City Police. The shooter in the photo was identified as Arnel Buenaflor, who was arrested on January 7th, and two suspected accomplices, one Michael Gonzalez, alias Fubo or Fish Pond Area, and Rome Oliva, alias Balong, were arrested by January 3rd in connection with the murder. Buenaflor was charged with murder by Assistant City Prosecutor Darwin G. Canete after inquest. Buenaflor, a member of the Passway gang, claimed to have shot Dagsa in retribution for being shot in the head by persons associated with Dagsa during a shootout months earlier, while police attributed a motive to Dagsa's peacekeeping efforts in Barangay. Our next photo is called Elk Bath. So Elk Bath is a wildlife photograph by John McColgan, a fire behavior analyst working for the Alaska Fire Service Division of the Bureau of Land Management. It was taken on August 6, 2000 on a bridge crossing to East Fork of the Bitterroot River on the Sula Complex, Bitterroot National Forest in Montana in the US. and is also sometimes known by the title Bitterfoot Forest Fire, or more vaguely, Montana Fire. When NASA featured it in an online astronomy picture of the day series, it was called Fire on Earth. The image shows two Rocky Mountain elks seeking protection from a wildfire by standing in the river. It is one of the Time magazine photographs of the year 2000 and ran in its The Year in Pictures special edition in winter 2000/2001 and the web equivalent. McColgan took the photograph with a Kodak DC-280 digital camera while standing on the bridge crossing over the East Fork of the Bitterroot River. Several other animals were present off-frame, including a deer standing below McColgan as he took the photograph. Our next photo is called Raising the Flag on Ground Zero. Raising the Flag at Ground Zero is a photograph taken by Thomas E. Franklin of the Record newspaper of Bergen County, New Jersey, taken on September 11, 2001. The picture shows 3 New York City firefighters raising the U.S. flag at Ground Zero of the World Trade Center following the September 11 attacks. The official names for the photograph used by the Record are Firefighters Raising Flag and Firemen Raising the Flag at Ground Zero. The photo appeared on the Record front page on September 12, 2001. The paper also put it on the Associated Press wire, and it appeared on the covers of several newspapers around the world. It has often been compared to the Raising the Flag on Iwo Jima photograph taken by Joe Rosenthal during World War I. Alright y'all, so that is the end of our part 1 of our level 3 of our iconic photographs Iceberg. Thank you for making it to the end of this video. If you guys like this kind of content, don't forget to like and subscribe. It means a ton. Otherwise, I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.